Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this live event to find out more about Child Focus Courts. My name's Jo Sewell, and I'm a head of practice with additional assistant director duties. And I'm going to be joined this afternoon by colleagues from across Cafcass who will have an appreciative inquiry about what it's like working for us. You can see who's going to be joining me on the slide, but my colleagues will introduce themselves when they come to have their conversations. By way of background, I've been with Cafcass for quite some time now, and I've held a number of roles across the organisation. So I joined as a family court advisor and progressed through the roles of assistant service manager through to head of practice. And I've also worked across a number of service areas. So I'm currently in West Yorkshire. I've worked in South Yorkshire, Hull and the Humberside, and at the moment I'm reaching across into Cheshire and Merseyside. I think you will tell from that brief overview of my time here at Cafcass that we're an organisation that invests in our people. And Ian, if you could just put that first slide back up, please. It shows some feedback from staff during our last Ofsted inspection, when I'm sure you'll know we were graded as an outstanding organisation. And you can see that colleagues there have spoken about how they've grown professionally, the experience of joining us from a local authority, and just kind of like that positive testament to what it's like to work here. So over the past couple of years, the Ministry of Justice has been piloting a new way of working in private law to improve the experiences of children and families. You may have known that as Pathfinder. In March this year, it was announced that this new way of working, Child Focus Courts, will be implemented across the whole of England and Wales. So just for clarity, when we're talking about Child Focus Courts, myself and my colleagues might slip into the old language of Pathfinder, but you'll notice that we very quickly correct ourselves. But there is a tendency still at the moment to use the two names interchangeably. So in my current role, I've worked with colleagues in West Yorkshire to support the launch of Child Focus Courts, and we're just celebrating our 1-year anniversary. Interestingly, West Yorkshire was the first Cafcass area to launch across the whole DFJ area, and practitioners in West Yorkshire have dual caseloads, so they work with families in private law and public law proceedings. So we were a bit of a test site for how the two law types would sit together with the launch of Child Focus Courts. I'm very proud to sit here and tell you that West Yorkshire's been nominated within Cafcass for Social Work Team of the Year. And we have our annual awards ceremony next week in London. Between us on the call, I'm very competitive, so we've been shortlisted, and if we don't win, I want to know why, because the team have just done such a tremendous job. It's a very exciting time to be joining us here in Cafcass, given that we are implementing private law reform nationally over the next 3 years, changing the way that we work with children and families in private law, and we are all learning this new way of working together. In terms of the impact for children, we're seeing much timelier outcomes for the children and families that we're working with. In West Yorkshire, for the period up to the end of March, proceedings were concluding within 13 weeks, which compared to timescales under CAP is significantly improved. And we know that living with uncertainty is not a positive experience for children. We're also engaging with children in a lot more circumstances under Child Focus Courts than we did in CAP. So within CAP, we saw a approximately 30 to 35% of children. Within child focus courts, we're engaging with about 80%. So that's giving many more children a voice and input into their own proceedings. We also continue to develop our practice for children and families in public law, and we're going to hear a little bit today about what it's like to work with children in both law types now that we're implementing child focus courts. And we're also going to think about how it feels for some of our colleagues and managers who are currently working in child focus court areas, including family court advisors, and we're joined also by a service manager. So I'm going to hand us over now to Patrick to lead with appreciative inquiry, please.
Thanks, Jo. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Patrick Lynn. I'm a head of practice in the Cafcass transformation team. So one of our key responsibilities is to support the implementation of the child focused courts across Cafcass. As Jo's just said, we're joined today by a number of colleagues, Jake, Seb and Sandra. They'll introduce themselves accordingly, and they're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to work at Cafcass. As Jo said, a little bit about practicing in both public and private law proceedings, particularly when you're working within a sort of child-focused courts area. And perhaps some of the differences, as Jo referred to the CAP, the Child Arrangements Programme, some of the differences between working within child-focused courts as opposed to the Child Arrangements Programme. I probably should give you a little bit of background on that myself, but I'm really conscious of time. But very, very quickly, like Jo, started off as a family court advisor at Cafcass many years ago, and find myself now as a head of practice. But I'm going to stop there because I'm conscious of time, and I'm sure you'd much rather hear from Jake and Seb and Sandra than from me. So I'm going to start with this appreciative inquiry, and I'm going to come to Jake. First of all, Jake's the Senior Service Manager. Jake, do you want to just do some introductions for yourself, please?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Jake, the Group Coordinator. I'm a Senior Service Manager, and I work in Hampshire and Dorset currently. I've worked for Cafcass for a couple of years, having joined from local authority. Prior to working for Cafcass, I worked as a team manager, and my background prior to Cafcass was a social worker in child and care and child protection kind of court work teams. So yeah, my current role specifically has been about supporting the rollout of the child focused courts in the Hampshire area, where Dorset had been one of the original pilot sites for the Pathfinder courts, which went live a couple of years ago. So yeah, we've had a big program of change in the area where I work.
Jake. So just in terms of, I suppose, just thinking about your role as a manager, can you tell us what a family court advisor can expect when they first join Cafcass?
Yeah, I think most people who join Cafcass have been working in local authorities as social workers, so I think they're quite familiar with the role of the guardian in public law proceedings, care proceedings. But the world of private law might be not quite so familiar to them. I remember thinking that when I came to Cafcass that I took a job as specifically managing a team of private law, and it's the finer intricacies of a child arrangements order, prohibited steps orders, specific issues orders. You will know about these things as a social worker, but you might not know them to the level of details you need when you come to private law in Cafcass. So I think for me, one of the first things is really just making sure the basics are there, just making sure. And, the other thing that's unique about Cafcass is you'll have things that you've never come across before, such as like surrogacy cases, step-parent adoptions, 16(4) proceedings, which local authorities aren't always party to or very rarely are party to. So there's lots to learn, and I think it's about really getting that foundation knowledge in place, and really protecting that time to learn before you get caseload starts increasing in line with your kind of experience and your confidence and your competence as well. So induction is really important. I think the other thing, I think about my own experience coming into Cafcass, and I think I certainly had a significant developmental leap in terms of my domestic abuse practice. I think the majority of private law cases have an element of domestic abuse which needs to be assessed and to understand the impact on children. And I think it's something Cafcass does really well, and Cafcass strives to be better at. Feedback from people who've experienced domestic abuse in family law proceedings isn't particularly positive, nationally, for Cafcass, for local authorities, for the family court. So I think it's a real practice priority for us. So I think really giving people the confidence to work with domestic abuse, whether that's challenging abusive behaviours, whether that's supporting people who've experienced domestic abuse, adult victims or children, and I think having the confidence in your recommendations to the court, making unequivocal recommendations, not shying away from saying, I don't think this person should spend time with their child because this is my analysis of harm. So I think that tends to be the starting point for me in supporting new practitioners who join from other places to work with us in Cafcass.
Thanks, Jake. That's really helpful. And obviously, you've already alluded to the fact that you've been in a child-focused courts area for some time now. And actually, just that comment there about domestic abuse practice and how kind of child-focused courts kind of helps us perhaps think differently. So can you just tell us a little bit about what it's felt like working on the child-focused courts model, and how you, as a manager, how you've supported colleagues during this time?
Yeah, I think sort of on the ground, I think the increased focus on domestic abuse is one of the priorities, and really making sure we get that right. But the other one is about reducing delay for children. So we spend less time in court than we used to. It's streamlined. We're talking about some applications we receive are concluded within 8 weeks. I think, as Joe said, the average in Leeds is 13. I think Dorset are a little bit higher, towards the high teens. But in Hampshire, that's just gone live, we've almost it's getting towards halving the timescales for private law proceedings very, very quickly. But I guess that does come with a challenge as well, because we're working quickly, and you don't have the court hearings, and actually the responsibility is on us to make those decisions for children in the early stages of proceedings. So with that responsibility comes, with the flexibility, to take children and their families in the directions for the assessments that you think they need to go. So whether that's, a really robust safeguarding assessment around, the child's experiences of harm, or whether that's, actually you identify these parents need some support and dispute resolution. So I think those are the kind of, for me, it's about supporting practitioners to have the confidence to make those decisions. And that comes down to, really high quality supervision, about supporting practitioners to be brave when they need to be, supporting them to, put things before the court that need to go before the court. If we're saying this child needs a safe order now, not waiting till the end of the proceedings. If there's only going to be one hearing, you might request an urgent hearing, whether that's getting parents together and helping them focus on their child and trying to reach a resolution. But I think, that takes good quality reflective supervision. I think there's a real important thing around sharing accountability as well. We're making brave decisions for children. Sometimes we're managing risk. Sometimes we're saying this is unsafe, we need to do something about it. But making sure practitioners have the access to supervision to share the accountability for those difficult decisions we make in the early stages of private law proceedings, and then to move things quickly towards resolution wherever we possibly can. So yeah, it's about children's safety and about securing positive outcomes, and thinking about the massive bearing we have on children's lives through private law proceedings. So yeah, I think for me it's about getting practitioners really confident in their decision making and knowing where they can go for support around the difficult decisions they have to make.
It's really helpful, thanks, Jake. And that kind of, I suppose, that reflection really about the importance of supervision and that space really, I think is really helpful to hear. Joe, before I kind of come on to Seb, is there anything you want to pick up on at this point?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me back in, Patrick, and thank you, Jake. I think the striking feature, Jake, that I've pulled from the conversation there is about supporting practitioners to build their confidence. So that's from moving perhaps from the local authority to Cafcass and providing robust induction and materials to build confidence to undertake the private law assessments, but then also continuing to build on that confidence through reflective supervision to support safe decision making for children and to share accountability. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Seb, over to you. if that's okay. Would you like to do some initial introductions, please?
Thank you for inviting me. So my name is Sebastian. I'm a family court advisor in Cafcass Child Focus Court in the screening team overseeing Dorset, Hampshire, and Isle of Wight areas. I have joined Cafcass in just over 12 months. 12 months ago, coming from my experience from working across local authority and social care teams, and more recently, for a significant period of my post-qualifying practice as an independent social worker. In my current role, I assess private law application, considering any risks of harm and protective factors presented in the children's life who are in the center of private law applications. And in this process, I speak with predominantly the parent, partner agencies, and the family court to achieve and address the concerns that were stressed and summarized in the harm panel report in 2020. In this report provides us with the in-depth understanding of how effectively the partner agency, but the family courts can identify and respond to the report of domestic abuse and any other serious offenses in private law application.
Seven, really helpful actually, just to provide a bit of context really to your role and the role of that team. You mentioned that you've been with Cafcass just over about a year, I think you said. So are you able to, and again, just really picking up on those earlier comments from Joe and Jake about induction, are you able to just tell people what it felt like to join Cafcass, and also just to kind of tell us a little bit about your the process of induction?
Yes, so Stan, I certainly would like to echo what my senior manager Jake said before. Straight from the beginning, there was a sense of that I was welcome and supported by my colleagues, line managers, and the service in a broader sense. I recall that during my induction, I was offered a broad opportunities to either attend in-person or virtual training sessions, whether they were particularly interesting sessions on identifying domestic abuse, responding to the reports of domestic abuse, and supporting the children and families to go through the process of application, considering and keeping in mind their safety. Other very helpful courses included how to work with family court, how to develop and progress your writing skills, and report formulations. At the same time, two of my more experienced colleagues experiencing Cafcass were allocated to me on the basis of a buddy system, so I could then either shadow their practice or shadow other areas of Cafcass through the work or through the exchange of guidance and mentoring. Finally, admittedly, I came to Cafcass with a certain experience from local authority in my independent practice. However, I also observed that service equally supported qualified social workers or less experienced family court advisors to become more confident in their work with families, with the children, and presenting their findings in family courts.
So that's really helpful. So it's really helpful just to get an idea, I think, about some of that support when you first came to work for Cafcass. Did you have any worries before you joined, and was there anything that's kind of reassured you really since you started working for us a year ago, and what's kind of helped to reassure you really in terms of your place within your team and at Cafcass and within your role?
Yes, so I have joined Cafcass from a long period of working as an independent social worker with family court, both in private and public law applications. So I knew I had this experience within the family courts. However, joining a layered organization as Cafcass. It was somewhat a daunting experience for me, moving from rather isolating nature of independent practice. However, it was I quickly managed to overcome these feelings by speaking by liaising with my colleagues, by team meetings, by being, I suppose, as I mentioned before, feel welcomed by the service. I was also wondering to what extent my standards of practice that I developed over years would match with the standards of practice required by Cafcass to achieve the best outcomes for the families, for the children. And this was in the context, me knowing that the Cafcass, I've always considered Cafcass as an organization that had a strong drive to develop the quality of work with families. However, I was effectively supported by service, and I've achieved a good match between, I suppose, my skills and the requirements of the organization.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much, Seb. Again, before I kind of move on to Sandra, I'm going to just invite Jo in. Jo, do you want to add any comments to what you've heard?
I will, thank you, Patrick. I don't make a very good observer, do I? Sebastian, thank you for sharing your experiences and particularly walking us through the induction programme and the welcome that you received here at Cafcass. But thanks also for sharing those initial worries and anxieties that you had about making the transition, because they're very real to us as we make the transition from a local authority employer to a new national organisation. And thanks also for grounding child focused courts in the harm panel report. For those of us in Cafcass, we know the kind of history and the background to where child focused courts, where the notion came from for private law transformation. But Sebastian, you've just grounded us back in that, so thank you.
Thanks, Jo. Thanks again, Seb. So, Sandra, over to you now. Are you okay to do some introductions?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Sandra Potter. I'm a family court advisor based at Leeds. Do I need to press anything to become in the middle of the screen, or does someone else do that? Sorry.
You're in the middle of my screen,
That's
Sandra.
fine. Just check. Sometimes I've done these events and I've pressed the wrong thing, so just checking you can see me. So yeah, I'm based in Leeds. I've been with Cafcass for 9 years. I started in the assessment team. I was there for 6 years, and that was involving doing both public and private law work. Now I am in the assessment team. So I'm in now I'm in the screening team. So that's just the private law work. And that's with the child focused courts, and we've been doing child focused court work for a year now. And so that's where I'm at.
Fabulous. Well, thanks, Sandra, for joining us today. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, really. One is about your experience of working in sort of dual law type work, so working both public and private law cases together. And then I'm going to ask a separate question then about some of the transition really through to child focused courts. So if I could just ask you that first question, are you able to just kind of talk to everyone a little bit about your experiences of working within both public law and private law?
It's intense. There's huge decisions to be made with short time frames for inquiries. In public law, you've got the benefit of being able to instruct solicitors on behalf of the child, so that you've got some advice and support that way. You're working really closely with the local authority and with the IRO. You're having real oversight of care planning, and there's so much fine detail to be carefully thinking about and looking at interim and long-term arrangements throughout. And you're mixing that up and combining it with the demands of private law work, often parents that are unrepresented, and you're on your own in that situation. There's no social worker to call upon and no solicitor to call upon. And you know, you're having to look very carefully at the application around what's working in the interim for children, what's safe and best and right for them, and also thinking about long-term arrangements in line with their best interests and making sure that the court is only ever making an order that is safe. And as we've touched upon, domestic abuse is a massive factor in public and private law work. It's something that Cafcass have made a lot of progress on, and it's something that kind of threads its way throughout both pieces of work. I think the main thing with trying to manage both is the child is key. Getting out to see them early on, understanding their world and their needs early on is key. Front loading, planning everything very, very carefully. As I say, those time frames are tight for us. That's really with good reason. Children do not want to be in limbo for longer than necessary. Being in the courts itself is a harmful experience that we're really well aware of. And so it's intense, it's busy, there's a lot to be done, but with real good reason. And I would say in both public and private law, getting to a resolution, you don't get that in local authority work a lot of the time. Getting to that resolution and seeing it through is really rewarding.
Thanks so much, Sandra. Actually, that it's really helpful. I think that you kind of provide that honesty about it being intense, about it being busy, but also it's clear to see that you're incredibly enthusiastic about kind of making a difference for children. So it's really helpful just to hear that context. So thank you. So just in terms of, just take you specifically to the child focused courts model then. Joe alluded earlier to West Yorkshire being kind of having implemented the model about 12 months ago now. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how you felt at the time about moving to that child-focused courts model? And it's a sort of two-part question because I'm conscious of time, and what support you received during that period of transition?
Yeah, I think me and the team felt really excited about the prospect of moving to child-focused courts. It felt long overdue. We'd felt for a long time when we're recommending to courts a Section 7 report is needed, that we're also putting the child through a lot of delay, and we don't have that worry anymore. We're getting on with it from the offset. We're looking at, from the offset, thinking about how we're going to assess the situation to get to those final recommendations. So yeah, enthusiastic is what I'd say. Some concern, but to be honest, the preparation was a lot. Over prepped, I think, is probably what a lot of us felt, like the amount of training events and support we had. We're meeting with other areas who had already implemented child focused courts, who were talking to other family court advisors who were doing it, which was really beneficial. We were having training days. We were hearing from judges about how child focused courts was working and the decision making hearing process, because it is very different going from Section 7 reports, which generate a lot of hearings just to get to the Section 7 report, never mind the outcome, to then the model of child impact report, where you're just wanting one hearing, one report, one decision. So yeah, overwhelming to think of it like that, but lots of support and training. Lots of space in the caseloads as well, I would say. We were kind of given space and time. We weren't just trying to do the old CAP work, Section 7 reports, alongside child impact reports. We were kind of supported to separate the caseloads out and had a little bit of space to really take our time and make sure we're getting it right from the offset.
Fabulous. Thanks again, Sandra. Joe, before I ask a kind of a generic question, really, to either to Sandra or to Jake, really, about any other benefits of working for Cafcass, is there anything else you wanted to kind of comment on, having listened to Sandra?
Yes, thank you, Patrick. I mean, Sandra, your description of working a dual caseload, so the balance, but the tension of balancing the demands of public and private law, I think you described that very clearly and eloquently, but also kind of then as you talked about implementation of child focused courts and the support and preparation, I think you used the phrase over prepared for it, which was interesting to hear. But what I hear from all three of our contributors today, so from Jake, Sebastian and Sandra, is just that enthusiasm and that drive to achieve safe, best outcomes for children. I think that's quite resounding. So thank you.
Okay, just conscious of allowing a little bit of time for questions, but just sort of before I wrap up, really, was there anything else that either Jake or Seb or Sandra would like to add about what it's like to work at Cafcass, particularly in that child focused courts arena?
I'm happy to say I've really enjoyed the change because I worked under the CAP model, child arrangements program, section 7s and the like down in Cornwall, Devon and Somerset, and I was, it's hard work, and sometimes, some of the proceedings that there's nothing more demoralizing than working with a child subject to private law proceedings for, over a year or sometimes getting up to 2 years, and really wanting an outcome for that child, but it not being possible under the system and all the opportunities and for delay. But, I was really inspired by hearing about, reading the harm panel report and seeing the commitment to change. So that's one of the reasons I applied for the job down in Hampshire, the move to this model, and it's been fun as well. I just wanted to say, getting to know a new team, the enthusiasm within the team, bringing a new team together for the screening was a really big part of my job, and yeah, it's I'm getting a lot back out of work, I think, and really feeling the changes and the benefits for children too. Seeing, when you manage to get a resolution outside of court, for example, where the family don't actually have to engage with a court hearing, where all that litigation can ramp things up. You do your work with them outside of the court arena, and it can conclude within 8 weeks. And you get an order that you think is safe, where the parents have come together and sorted it out. It's a really nice feeling, I think, resolving cases for children in that way, as opposed to ending up in court with the first hearing dispute resolution appointments and the lawyers ramping things up, the barristers, and it can get really messy. So I've really enjoyed working with this model. I think it is a better model. It can be hard work, as I think Sandra was saying. The time pressures on us are high. I don't want people to apply for Cafcass thinking it's an easy ride compared to local authority. It's really not. It's a hard job. It's tough. You're working with children. You're working with distressed people. You're working with people who are experiencing abuse and harm. You're working with perpetrators of abuse and harm. It's a social work job, but it's I'm getting a lot back out of it. And I know people in my team as well are all really positive about working under this model too.
Thanks ever so much, Jake. And I think at this point, as we head towards 1:05, I'm going to ask Ian if he'll just pop up a slide really, which just to share with you about some of the other kind of benefits really of working with Cafcass. And Joe, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you want to just talk to any of this.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. So yes, as Patrick said, the slide sets out some of the benefits from our wellbeing offer. You'll see there that in Cafcass we offer 4 wellbeing days a year. Our next one is on the 1st of July. The theme of the next Health and Wellbeing Day is permission to pause, self-care during high demands. And I think you'll see that fits quite well with what you've just heard from other colleagues on the call. Other benefits that I would probably flag specifically, the employee assistance program, which includes a trauma debrief support service. So that's a counselling service that's available to all of our employees. It's available 24/7. It's confidential. And I know that staff I've worked with have found it incredibly helpful. We're supported in our wellbeing offer by a dedicated health and wellbeing team who offer a range of workshops, consultations, coaching, and we do also have a champions network. We are members of pension scheme. We have access to a staff discounts provider, and I know folk make good use of that. So whether you're looking for a gym membership or free coffee offers, reduced cinema tickets, there's all sorts included in that offer. And our annual leave offer is 28 days rising to 33 after 5 years of continuous service. And you'll see from the slide, we do have access to special leave, including parental leave and carers leave. Thank you for inviting me back in, Patrick.
Oh, I know. It's becoming a thing, isn't it? I just listened, really wanted to say a massive thanks to Jake, to Seb, and to Sandra for coming along today, for giving up some of their really valuable time. And I hope, I hope it's been beneficial for those of you that have joined. Joe, is there anything you want to say finally before we draw this to a close?
I will come back in and I will echo your thanks, Patrick. So thanks, Patrick, to you for leading the appreciative inquiry conversations. And thanks again to Jake, Sandra and Sebastian for your honest and candid reflections of life here at Cafcass, your experiences making the transition and the support that you've had in doing so, and then in describing what the day-to-day life at Cafcass is like. I can't see any questions in the Q&A or chat. If anybody has any questions, we do have a few minutes, and if you're thinking it, then I can assure you that somebody else on the call is also thinking it. So please be brave and stick it in there, and we'll pick it up if we can. Am I missing any questions? Can anybody see any that I can't?
No, I don't think so, Joe. I can't see any.
Anna, I can see that you asked a question if there's a map of Cafcass locality areas in the UK. I believe there's one on our internet, on our web page, so it would be worth checking that out in the first instance. If there aren't any more questions, can I just ask if people could spare us 2 minutes to give us some brief feedback? And if you think of any questions after the event, you can let us know via the feedback form, and we can pick that up and come back to you. Actually, I can see a hand up now. Come in. Is it Bismarck?
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to clarify, are you looking for practitioners who have just are saying frontline, or it could be, so basically for myself, let me just use myself. I mean, I've been qualified for over 15 years as a social worker, but I've been in academia for the past 12 years or so as a senior lecturer in social work, looking to come back to frontline. Is it something that you think you would recommend, or not?
I mean, that's a great question. I would definitely recommend that if you're interested to have a look at our vacancies and to perhaps have conversations with any of the recruitment managers, and they will tease that through with you. I would suggest that it might be quite a big leap to come having been out of frontline for some time. But of course, anybody who joins us, Bismarck, as you've heard from colleagues on the call, are supported by a robust induction plan and supported by training materials. But I tease that through with any recruitment managers. They'd be happy to have the conversation with you. And then I think Victoria.
Hi, sorry, the chat's disabled for me, so I couldn't write in it.
No, come in.
I was just interested in knowing if you have any additional support for social workers with neurodiversity. So I've got ADHD, and my work is like the actual content of my work. I've never had any comments raised, but sometimes I might look at things differently, or take a bit longer to do things, or need some adjustments. And I was just wondering if anyone had any experience or knew anyone that could talk a bit about that.
Great question, Victoria. And my short answer to you is yes. But I don't know, Jake, are you happy for me to come to you to describe perhaps what Victoria might be able to expect if she were to join us?
Yeah, no problem. So Cafcass is committed to supporting neurodivergent practitioners. I mean, ADHD is defined as a disability under the Equalities Act as well. So, we'd have to look at a plan for support additional specific to your needs that would support you to do a good job as part of our duties of care and responsibilities to you. Cafcass does have like a neurodiversity network. So there's a network of people across the organisation, because it's a national organisation as well. That's actually quite a big network. So just to give you an example of something that we're doing in the area where I work, we have our monthly managers meeting, and someone within that network who's part of the service is actually doing a presentation to all the managers across the Southwest, just to talk about how we can better support people with ADHD and autism or other kind of neurological conditions that might have an impact on their practice. I think it's about getting it right for staff, because then they get it right for children. So I don't think it would be a barrier to you. We might have to make some adjustments for you, but it's about you communicating your needs to us and then us making a plan for you if you're successful in applying and getting the job with Cafcass. So there's a strong commitment from the organisation, and I think increasingly so is what I'd say, sort of recognising how different people work, and people work in different ways and they have different strengths. So we're a diverse organisation, and we'd welcome applications from people who are diverse, to reflect the people we work with as well. We work with communities and different people with all kinds of different backgrounds, so it's important that our workforce reflects that too.
Thank you. Trying. That sounds really great. Especially the network. I'm trying to set one up in my local authority at the moment, because I think it's not going to be just me that needs it. So yeah, I really thank you to all of you, because this has really made me want to apply like tomorrow. So thank you so much.
Great. Well, we look forward to receiving your application, Victoria. We've just a couple of minutes. There are 2 questions that I can see in the chat, and I'm going to take Sarah's and I'm going to come to Sebastian. So sorry to put you on the spot, Sebastian, but what might a typical week look like for an FCA? And in brackets, is there any such thing as a typical week?
Overall, yes. There are typical weeks. But it's just a matter of some of the weeks we find more intense than the other. But typically, week looks like we have professional independency in managing our diaries and inquiries in the Pathfinder, but child focus model, and that includes arranging interviews with the parents, arranging interviews or home visits to the children if this is considered appropriate and beneficial and necessary. Also, in terms of the process of the screening application, we look at the broad range of the court papers, starting from the application, from concerns and witness statements. We assess and review local authorities and the police checks, considering any risks assessment, risks of harm, and bringing that all together into our screening assessments for recommendations, whether the recommendations will be for us to go and refer the concerns to local authority, or we need to go and ask the court for safe interim orders, or for us to complete further work with the parents to achieve interim safety for the children. So overall, the weeks are typical. There are typical weeks because we know with a certain framework of our time scales and time frames of our work. But they could be, some of the weeks could be more intense than the other. But as I said, I'd like to again echo what Jacob said before. Within a period of 1 to 2 days, we can achieve big and very helpful progress for the families, which I find particularly rewarding.
Lovely. Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you for giving that kind of overview of what a typical week might look like in the screening team. I would caveat that a little bit, because the role in the screening team is one aspect of the work that we do here in Cafcass. So, for example, Sebastian's description there hasn't captured life in the assessment team or working in public law, but thank you for giving that comprehensive overview, Seb. It was really helpful. I am conscious of time. Well, I haven't chaired very well because we've already gone over, but thank you for your questions, and hopefully we've responded as best we could in the time scales that we have. If you do want to know more about Cafcass, there's a QR code there on the screen. You can find our page on the internet. We're on LinkedIn and also X at My Cafcass. And thank you for the contributors, and thank you to you guys for joining as well, and for those great questions that you asked. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for having me.